You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And my guests you have been listening to so far and watching: Godfred Bokwing, Professor of Finance and Economist, University of Ghana; Dr. Stephen Amoah, Deputy Finance Minister, who just taking leave of us as we go to the next issue. He's the MP for Nshai. So, and for his sake, let me make this statement. He's unhappy, Stephen is unhappy that I confirm or corroborate the text message by somebody that he has interpreted or he defines coverage to be the same as engagement with the media. He says he didn't say that, and my confirmation of it to the texter is wrong. To that extent, I withdraw the confirmation. Play the footage and listen to it for yourself, whether he said engagement and coverage of the media are the same. Kofi Adams is MP Boem, and we now are joined by Dr. Kwame Sapong Esiedu, D.A.D. Fellow on Public Health and CDD at CDD Ghana. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Kwame Sapong Esiedu. Hello, Kwame.
So can you hear me?
Great, I can hear you. So let's go straight into this issue. And I don't know whether I should say, here is your stone, take it. I remember my interview with you when the ambulances were brought. Your major issue at the time was maintenance. Maintenance is what is leading us to issues of inflated contracts, issues of conflict of interest, because we are being told that the daughters of the president, two of them, and their associate in one company have found themselves in this company that is doing the maintenance of the ambulance contract, among other issues that are coming up. The Auditor General is the one that sort of provided the folder for Okudzeto-Ablakwa to begin this particular expose. In the course of this discussion, I'll be sharing some portions of the Auditor General report with you. It was a special audit in 2022 that was done.
Performance audit.
It was performance audit. Yeah. In 2022 that was done on this subject and has brought up a number of issues. The company was using staff of the National Ambulance Service when it had itself, in seeking the contract, contracted to use its own staff to do the work. It was using National Ambulance Service staff, and then payments became a matter of double issues. Right. So, Kwame, let's begin with you. What does the expose say as far as you are concerned?
Thanks, Samson. And let me say good morning to Prof. Bokwing and Honorable Kofi Adams as well. It gets me very worried. You're right. When this whole ambulance thing came, I said on Newsfile and I said on the Super Morning Show, as well as on other stations where anyone would listen, that I was concerned that there was no indication that we had a maintenance contract or a service contract for these ambulances. And I said so because ambulances, as they stand, are not just common vehicles. They are medical equipment. And for medical equipment that you buy brand new, they always will come with a service contract because they have to be under warranty. And for a product to be under warranty, the supplier or the manufacturer, which in this case is Mercedes-Benz, would want there to be a service contract, so if the product becomes defective under the period of the warranty, you can exercise your rights under the warranty, either for it to be repaired or for it to be replaced. And in fact, when you buy medical equipment that are under warranty or are supposed to be under warranty, and you don't take the warranty, some medical service providers wouldn't even sell to you. In fact, I know one whose CEO is West African CEO is in Ghana, and a very good friend of mine. He wouldn't sell you medical equipment unless you take the warranty. Others would sell you the medical equipment, but they would remind you that if you don't take a service contract, the equipment are not subject to warranty. So when it came and we didn't have anything like that, it made me very worried because we have a poor maintenance culture in Ghana as it stands. And we had seen that with the National Ambulance Service, there were ambulances prior to these ones which had broken down and we were failing to repair. And I felt that having spent this amount of money, we didn't need to allow these ambulances to suffer the same fate. So I kept asking, only for us to find out that as of 2019, just as I suspected, there was no service contract. And we went into a contract with this company. Well, according to the Auditor General, we started giving them work without them being a registered company in Ghana. So we could not have said to have been in a contractual obligation with them. But then the point is this. We buy products from Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz have local agents in Ghana. Why were we taking a company with no track record? The next thing that flags up for me, like I said, is ambulances are medical equipment, and they have their own service regime. If you remember yesterday, I shared something on my Facebook wall, which is just a box standard service contract for a standard ambulance. I just did a quick search using ChatGPT to try and find out what the standards are. One, and you clearly realize that the equipment on be it the oxygen tanks, be it the defibrillators, we don't have time, so I cannot name them all, have their own servicing routine. And more importantly, they also have what we call their standardization and calibration routine, because those equipments must meet the required standards of the Ghana Standards Authority. So I started asking myself more questions that if we had a service contract now with this company, did they have the skill mix to service just the vehicle or the medical equipment that was on the vehicle that makes it a medical device? Then I read and I picked up that they were using National Ambulance Service staff. And that rings an alarm bell. Why? Because if you look at standard service contracts for ambulances, you realize that some things have to be done daily, some things have to be done monthly, and calibration normally is done either quarterly or half yearly. So often, the company that supplies you the ambulance would train staff of the Ambulance Service Authority to be able to do some aspects of the calibration and other things. So I then felt that Mercedes-Benz may have trained some staff of the National Ambulance Service to actually do some aspects of the calibration, but ultimately, the Ghana Standards Authority would have to verify whether the calibration still retains the standards as permitted by our laws. Then I find out that, okay, if we have provided this training for these people to be able to provide some of the standard, servicing and maintenance for the ambulances, why are they being paid by the taxpayer and then working for another company, which then bills the state? So it's like they are being paid twice. What I don't get is, was the company paying them as well? So were they getting double salary, or the company was using them to fleece the state? The Auditor General says they had over-invoiced. And I'm asking myself, so how did we get into this contract even with them? What sort of due diligence did we do? Because yes, I can see the argument that people say it was a new company, they might not have a track record. But I also know that someone might form a new company, but if the employees or the leadership of the company have the track record, because maybe they work for other ambulance service companies and have the track record and have their own licensure, they could be given the contract, because that would not take away the fact that the expertise is there. I don't see that from this company as well. So by and large, I think there are a lot more questions that are being asked. And that was why yesterday I was saying, I worry because we are treating these ambulances like just normal vehicles, where you change oil, spark plugs, air filter, and that. This is not. This is bigger than that. And therefore, we need to look in seriously, because have we even breached our warranties? Is that why, if you look at the cost of the spare parts that we are going to buy, some of them per unit for each ambulance is higher than buying a new ambulance. Is it because we breached our warranty, so it's costing us more? All these things are things that we need to look into. So I think that there's a lot more to this story. There's possibly a lot more rot than we actually see.
Interesting. Now, you hold on. I'll come back to you to look at the other aspect of the Auditor General report itself about how the ambulances are used, including circumstances where accident and mothers who get into situations who are supposed to be ferried to where they need without being asked to pay money. The Auditor General found that they were actually taking money for emergency relating to road traffic accident, maternal and pediatric, as well as labor cases where they were not supposed to take money. There was a situation where they could ask the people to voluntarily, make a contribution to getting fuel. It found that they charged, I read in paragraph 105, despite categorizing these services, the National Ambulance Service charged for cases related to maternal, pediatric, and labor emergencies, although these cases fell within their criteria of ineligible payments. And they have a table where they show us circumstances where people were being asked to pay 200, 150, 450. I think the highest was 450, among other things, where they were found to have engaged that gentleman in Kumasi to be providing the services. They had engaged him, employed him. They said they poached him and employed him to provide the service, and he was being paid every month. And yet, they still took service to his garage, which was still there. And he was working on it and then getting paid differently from his monthly payment. Well, they have terminated that on the back of the audit report. There are refunds that they are supposed to make. They have also, as it were, pursued the refunds, both from, I think, that gentleman and also from the service company, where in Okudjeto's letter to the special prosecutor, he made this suspicion. He says that he said, this Okudjeto, in his petition to the special prosecutor, he says that thank you, that you take urgent steps in the supreme national interest to stop the imminent payment of the remaining 24.9 million US dollars pending the final determination of your investigations. Remember that 10 million has already been paid. $10 million has already been paid. Investigate the extent to which the very close business association between a director of Service Ghana Auto Group Limited by the name Stephen Okoro with the daughters of President Akufo-Addo, Jan Kroma Akufo-Addo and Edwina Akufo-Addo, who all together incorporated Goodbox Limited on the 12th of August 2020 and also incorporated Good Grow Limited on the 20th of August 2020, may have influenced the irregular award and unconscionable terms of this ambulance spare parts transaction, It is particularly instructive to highlight that Stephen Okoro and Jankroma Akufo-Addo are both directors of SFO Initiatives Limited, incorporated on the 9th of August 2013. And he provides all the documentation as far as these companies' bona fides are concerned to the special prosecutor. It may sound very familiar. Let me start with Kofi Adams. It may sound very familiar, where companies just spring up at the same time a certain project comes up, and they don't have track record, and yet they qualify under sole sourcing and get these kind of contracts. The SMLs of this world, we know how these things have gone on. From what you have read from the Auditor General's report and Okudjeto's petition to the special prosecutor, what do you think is wrong? Well, if any at all?
Samson, there's everything wrong about many things that we do. And it is high time that as leaders, especially political leaders, we come to the realization that we must not only be seen to be talking, but we must be seen to be doing what it is that we talk and we say. When it comes to words, I can give it to His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. And he makes very good sound bites that can really motivate you to think that we have arrived. If it is in my government that you want to make money, then stay out, because that is not what is going to happen. Sole sourcing is bad. It's going to be, he classifies sole sourcing as being equivalent to what? Corruption. And that it will not happen, even though the law allows for what? Sole sourcing if you go through the processes. But this was seen as bad, as avenue for corrupt acts. He talked about many things. Family and friend became a matter.
Yes, obviously now it is worse. Sole sourcing is worse than before. But the question is, what do you find? What do you find wrong? Particularly listening to Kwame Sapong-Asiedu, the list of things that you need for maintenance of an ambulance.
Yeah. That is why I'm saying that if he succeeded in running away with all these things, the next, and I listened to Francis Poku, Honorable Francis Poku, when he spoke the last time, that
former National Security
Coordinator, that look, many Ghanaians are just having hope that the next administration will take the rightful decision to reset Ghana. And that is why many have not acted in some ways.
Like Kenya.
We will be found wanting, and it will be disastrous if we make a mistake from 2025. And so all these things that we read and see should awake us the more. And that is why, in many times, I would come to that. I don't want to go to that point, then people will say, I'm making a proposition for my party or what have you. But clearly, we must have this at the back of our minds, that the country is boiling.
You can't take the people for granted.
You can't take the people for granted anymore. You can't. These things cannot happen.
You, the politicians, we mean.
Look, and not just the politician. You see, sometimes this thing, Public Accounts Committee have gone into it. We raised it. We've done our report. That report is, though, yet to be taken on the floor. It's yet to be taken on the floor. We went into it, and they could not provide answers to this. And it's very well captured in our report. And I'm happy that Honorable Okudjeto Ablakwa has taken this to the next level following the contract that was signed by Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta for the $34.9 million service agreement with this very company. And that is what has brought these issues up for even further discussion.
The point of suspicion is that he signed and ensured that the payment was made 5 days before he left office. Why should that raise suspicion? He's in office. He must be working until the last day.
You see, when you look at the figures involved, first and foremost, when you pick the Auditor General's report that you read and you look at page 24, paragraph 46, it talks about the insurance that should have covered some of those ambulances.
Yeah.
And in talking about the insurance, it said the agreed figure was 10%. And the cost of the ambulances was $80,000. So the 10% premium insurance was $8,000 per ambulance. So if the cost of the ambulance itself is $80,000, why on earth will anybody sign an agreement for just services to be rendered to an ambulance which costs $80,000, and if you do your calculation, the cost per ambulance is almost about almost 125% of the real cost of the ambulance. It doesn't make sense. Straight away, it should raise concern. And for an exiting finance minister to be in a rush to sign such a deal and authorize payment, why? Was the earth crashing?
By the $34.9 million, maintenance per ambulance will be $113,695,000 US dollars,
which is about 33,000 plus more than the cost of a new ambulance, which was quoted here as $80,000. So it should tell you something. You should be worried. Yes, he's in office. But if you look at the figures, and then you see the rush with which payment was made, and when you observe that many other companies are not being paid. Look, Indum's bank and the problem they had, is it not because a lot of persons they lent money to were not paid by government? Some of the contractors who took money from them were not paid. And so he suffered. Now he's lost his bank. If you look at the speed at which money was made available to this inexperienced company to service our ambulances, something was happening somewhere, and that is absolutely not right.
It could be coincidence.
Well, something then
that they are lucky to be paid within a short time.
Then the coincidence is just too much. Like yesterday, Bank of Ghana appeared before us. When we were looking at the foreign exchange receipts and payments, we observed that in a particular table, the Gold Key company that was building their headquarters in both 2022 and 2023 received the highest payments when many other companies are receiving nothing. In 2022, they received over $35 million. In 2023, they received over $82 million. Meanwhile, Ofanko to Nsawam Road received nothing for 2023. So because they have control over the funds, they decide what to do with it.
It is disbursed arbitrarily. That's what you're suggesting.
That's what I said. Okay, and so that is what the finance minister sought to do because of the relationship that is being exposed now, the connection, the links.
Let me take my final break and I'll come to Professor Bokwin. For those of you who don't know, you're asking, what's Prof. Bokwin going to talk about this here? He belongs to the Advocates for Christ. You should follow one of their programs one of these days. And you see the things they talk about. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. Now, let's hear from Professor Bokwin about this ambulance maintenance contract. And I asked the question to Kofi Adams, but I don't know if he actually got me. If you see the list of things, items that go into the maintenance of an ambulance, as shared with us by Kwame Sapong-Esiedu, it may be said that the amount for maintenance is reasonable.
more than the cost of buying, then you might as well just throw them away and just go and buy and all of that. I mean, given the circumstance, it's very difficult to make that argument. But I'm also curious, reading the report, that between 2014 and 2019, 149 ambulances were lost within such a short time. I mean, then it means that it's going to be very difficult for us to maintain this ambulance and have them serve Ghanaians on a more sustainable level. But if you have followed development in Ghana, this ambulance story is not strange. It's characteristic of a lot of the things we see across different ministries, departments, agencies. It's as simple as that. Whether you talk about the contract from GRA, or many of them, because the reality is that there are quite a number of Ghanaians who can only make it off things like this. And they are always looking for opportunities. Always looking for opportunities.
Explain, what do you mean?
These are successfully unemployed people who, other than being in power and living off the state through channels like this, probably will not have been able to sustain their lifestyle. They are one too many. And they are the reason why, when you see them following the politicians and the rest of them, it's not for the common good. And that is why you will see contracts like this, and it's difficult to come to terms with, because they think that once I get this avenue, I have to retire on the basis of this. And that is what you see running across. It's not only independent of the cost of servicing and the rest of them. Something, when you read Auditor General's report, you just see the level of abuse of people collecting money from vulnerable people and the rest of them, and not accounting for that. You see that it's pervasive, taking advantage, trying to make it. I mean, the little opportunity is not about the common good. It's about how my interests can be accommodated. It's how I can take advantage. So it's the same thing. So those who have access to little are still stealing little. Those who have access to more are stealing more. That is all that is going on. It's very difficult, and I believe that maybe we should have more of this performance audit, so a lot of things can easily be identified, and we see how we can correct them. This is not my area, but I think there's one thing that the managers of our economy and politicians will understand, that 3 years ago, we were not talking like this. 4 years ago, we were more sympathetic for government.
That's right.
That is changing. And it's even going to be more intense from 2025. So, because the point is that increasingly, look, there are so many Ghanaians who go to bed not being sure where their next meal will come from. What we call development. So today, a government comes and says that if you want to know the roads we have built and everything, go to a certain website. Come on, that's not development. So you mean that if it is there, we can't see it? If the roads are there, I can't see it, and all of that. Please, politicians, whether in opposition or in government, Ghanaians have endured just too. We are getting to the point where we can't take it anymore.
Prof, ordinary street lights and traffic light. I was in this studio, I think about 4 weeks ago. The street light just in front of us here, the intersection wasn't working. I thought today, by the time I come, it will be working. Still not working.
The Auditor General's report at page 35. So it's a 108-page report. And I invite you, Ghanaians, let's do beyond just listening and being doubtful as to whether the MP is talking facts or even the media is dealing with facts. At page 35, the heading is the MOU with that company did not inure to the benefit of the National Ambulance Service. And they give you a whole story. They talk about inflated invoices, among other things.
Collusion.
Yes, you come down to page 41. They talk about inflated invoices to the detriment of the National Ambulance Service. despite the use of staff of the National Ambulance Service to carry out the maintenance activities, provision of ambulance services in the country cannot be sustained. Then they talk about how they are using the staff. They should use their own staff. Yeah. They gave the impression that they will get staff. And you find places where the ambulance service staff, you have about 6, and you have one person from them.
Yes.
Does that suggest to you that they were actually not set up to do this job?
Well, no, this is a clear case of seeing an opportunity and taking advantage of it. Not that you have the experience, you have the capacity to deliver on the mandate. And I believe that if we were following competitive tendering and doing the right thing, this company wouldn't have been selected.
Samson,
Wouldn't have been selected.
This is what
Wouldn't have been selected.
So under sole source, if you don't open up for competitive tendering, sole source, the regime is very restricted. Either you have expertise, either you have proprietary,
right
over something. Yeah. Either there is a catastrophe.
Yeah.
So
or maybe because this is emergency, makes it just emergency, right?
Okay,
even for the service of the ambulance.
So it's emergency.
Look, Samson, this is where I will borrow Justice Jones Doche's words and add just one. It is clear indication of create, loot, and kill.
Not share.
Not share. Create, loot, and kill. They are not sharing with anybody. They are just looting and killing because no proper service is being done. If you look at this report, there's no fault reporting mechanism. There is no indication of what service was actually done. So you can drive an ambulance in there and possibly drive it out without proper servicing because no proper recourse is kept.
Okay, so quick
and it's also a clear case that it's pervasive within the National Ambulance Service itself.
Okay.
In terms of how they were even using the ambulances, charging patients, vulnerable people. So you can see that this is a total breakdown.
Right. So I'll go to him quickly, but I want just about 30 seconds from all of you. From the outcome of this audit report, where they asked for refunds. They didn't ask for abrogation of the contract. They just asked them, let them pay back this amount of money. The Emmanuel Owusu Boadu, who was also employed, receiving money as an employee and still doing business and getting paid differently. They also asked that he too should refund some amount of money. What do you think should be done in 30 seconds?
Well, I think that they should go beyond that.
And do what? What exactly? The Auditor General didn't recommend beyond this.
Should it end there? I believe that Public Account Committee...
We've been having engagement with the Auditor General. Sometimes before we take reports, like the 2023 report, we've had an engagement with them. And along the line, we'll be making recommendations that sometimes some of their recommendations is so inconsistent. The same offense somewhere, they will recommend for application of the relevant sections of the law. In another, they will ask the person to just refund. So they now tell us that as a committee, we have powers to make other recommendations other than what they have made in their report.
I think I also lean towards that. That's why I was asking whether it ends just here.
Are you disappointed that this Auditor General will not do what Dom Levo used to do, which is backed by the Constitution and the Supreme Court through the Occupy Ghana case also affirmed? You should issue disallowances and surcharges.
Yeah, probably some of these things will lean towards a certain perspective. And I want to believe that the Auditor General should see through this.
Okay.
And also preserve his own reputation. Because at the end of the day, you will leave the office as an individual.
Exactly.
And your own CV will be rolled out to you one day.
Let's wait to see what the special prosecutor will do. The special prosecutor also issued a statement I'm very curious about. It says if it determines that it has the mandate to investigate it. You have the mandate to investigate procurement
but he's been minded by the language and actions that have been taken against him in recent
past. The special prosecutor should be upfront and say, this is in relating to procurement, and that is my job, procurement-related corruption.
Samson, he held a press conference not too long ago, and he said he used a certain account term, Anko.
Yeah, but we've moved on. If he thinks that he can't do the job because of all that has happened, then he should resign.
Well, if he resigns, worst things will happen.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that if you are there,
let me give Kwame
the
the last word. Kwame, when you read the report, I'm not talking about Kudjeto's petition. You hear that the response time, they are doing averagely 20 minutes or so. They are supposed to do between 5 and 8 or so, if my recollection of my reading is correct. What do you say about such things and how some people can ask for fuel? There's fuel coupon given to people within the regions to distribute to those who are managing the ambulances. And some of them, it can take them weeks before they get the fuel coupons. So they can't also help, but asking the people who need the help to pay them fuel money.
Well, Samson, I'll end it this way. This whole thing was deliberate. It was deliberately planned. Because it makes no sense that in 2019 we didn't go into a service agreement. If you go back to my last interview with you in 2019, I also talked about there being a lack of a budget line for running these ambulances. So all the things that the Auditor General has pointed out actually were pre-seen by some of us. We saw it coming because they had created those avenues. And the last thing I'll say is, you are talking about $33,000 more than the cost of an ambulance. Why? Because probably we are buying the parts. One, they are inflated. Number two, at higher prices because we didn't take a service agreement and are out of warranty.
Okay.
That is very, very deliberate. Someone somewhere sat down, did this, and wanted to exploit it. And that is why.